It's Monday on Your View. Welcome to the show. I am Moriah Afolabi Brown. As always, I have the ladies with me. Hey, Tope, how are you?
Good morning.
How was your weekend?
Very eventful. Very positively eventful.
Oh, nice.
I haven't been to a party in a very long time. I cannot even remember the last time I went to a party. So there was a surprise party yesterday, 40th for someone. Lady said, I am surprised and angry. Very surprised and very angry.
Why
it
was
very clear I didn't want a 40th party. I didn't want a party. But it was a party. Timi Dakolo was there. Serenade. It was
I saw a video of Timi that was singing to someone.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a really cool party, but I could understand why she would be angry because she was very angry. It took a long time before she could relax into the party because she didn't want a party. There's a whole lot happening that it was just not the right time to do party. But her husband insisted that you're worth celebrating. You haven't done anything like this before, and we want to just do this for you. So it was a very eventful weekend, and then my appreciating customers about the weekend. People are really trying to support my business. You know, finding a way to, like, the woman said she just wanted to. She felt she can't just give me money. She doesn't know what to do, so she decided to patronize my business. You know, I'm really, really grateful. God has been wonderful.
You had a customer. Oh my God, she's gonna kill me. She wanted to do her microshading,
and she reached out to you, and you did not tell me. Please, my number is all over Instagram. Just go to @TMO Sweets on social media.
I'm so sorry about that.
You can
she actually
call
had
me.
a party this weekend. And she wanted it for this weekend. Yikes.
Anyway, something you're supposed to wear for.
In fact,
how long does that last?
3 years.
Yes.
And there have been people sending messages. Please, how are you doing? Let me start looking for people.
And then I just need to give a birthday shout out to a friend. Her name is Phyllis. Well, I can't remember her marital name. It's just her. I don't know her marital name, but Phyllis Abadam. You know that is you, I mean. So your husband shouldn't get upset. So we went to secondary school together. It was her birthday yesterday. See, I love Phyllis because she's this very vivacious personality, always happy, always excited.
Is she done with the Tigers?
No, that's Yankat. Yankat is...
She's just
a cool person. She's been cool from when we were teenagers in school. So she just... But Phyllis was her birthday yesterday.
Happy birthday, Phyllis.
Happy birthday, Phyllis.
And I'm wishing you the best of this, your new year, and blessings for you, your family, your loved ones, you know, and I hope that you have fun, you know, a fun time as, you know, since you're a very fun person, I hope it, you know, translates in your everyday as you go about your day. Yeah.
I'm trying really hard to find how birthday, because I get them and I should screenshot and keep. I think that's what I'll start doing because I can't find them. I'm looking for the please wish me happy birthday. And there's so many of them. I can't find them. I do apologize. But please, if your birthday is today and you send me a message, I do apologize. Happy birthday to you. Many more years. God bless you. I'll really try to get better on this.
They really will understand. Okay, how was your own weekend? What did you do?
I had three tests on Saturday, and I was studying. So I was pretty much studying, and then I had a paper that was due yesterday. So I was pretty much an academic all weekend. I was just studying, you know. What are you going to do? But it's interesting. I like the fact that we're talking about leadership and leadership in the media industry and how media can project proper leadership. I mean, it's just interesting. So
you're
I'm excited. I'm enjoying it. Let's go on a break. So much to do today. Our economy is our focus. But first, we go through the front pages of the papers. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. So we're going to start with The Nation. Experts, recession to hit major sectors of the economy. You can say that again. APC-PDP clash over governor's visit to Jonathan. PDP leaders begin search for Secondacy's successor. Jimo Ibrahim, Nikon Investment tackle AMCON. Anger over killing of APC state chairman by abductors. And UBA grows gross earnings to 454 billion in Q3. Okay, so as I said earlier, we're going to be talking about the economy. So we'll probably just reserve that a bit later. But generally, poverty, food prices, unemployment may worsen, according to experts. And many experts are preferring solutions on what we can do to make a turnaround. As I said, we'll have a conversation about that a bit later. Who has the ABC PDP clash? So our APC governors went to visit former President Jonathan. Of course, the PDP spokesperson, they're not finding any fun in that. Sorry, I thought you said we're a horrible party. So why are you coming to come and see our party leader? And they were saying that they went there to just apologize about other things, it's just a friendly conversation. Now, we don't know what that means, but politicians are trying to see all the power play that is going on. Is Jonathan being looked as a possible candidate? Nobody knows. But all these conversations that they're having in the political circles, when they finally decide to let us know. In the meantime, APC governors went to visit Jonathan. What does that mean to you? We don't know.
But the president and the former president have
been
quite
chummy,
you know.
And
the wives as well.
Yeah,
so.
we see both of them hanging out.
I think that is important, though, that we should not read political meanings to it yet until they come out forth with it.
Politicians should read political meanings.
Yeah, but we as Nigerians shouldn't concern ourselves with it.
We are spectators. I was just
because
observing.
I think our president needs input from former leaders, considering how bad things are
Well, Jonathan
going.
has been helping him with the with West African issues, ECOWAS matter with Mali and all that. So we know he's been there, but hey, we never know. Let's move on because we are laymen. Let us not assume. Is there another story in Nation want to take? Let's move on to Vanguard. 2023, Northern Elders back Igbo presidency. The power play continues. Income tax revenue lags behind in federal government projections. Gridlock, tension rises as a papa. Miscreants attack presidential task team. Recession, PDP article slam federal government overhandling of economy. NECA, Sarah prescribed policies to jumpstart economy. All right, which story are we going to take?
Gridlock, the traffic situation in Apapa Port has gotten, it's projected to even get worse. It's already bad as it is. Sometime in the conflict, they said hoodlums, miscreants attacked the presidential task force, which comprises of different military parastatal. But what we found out was they said one person died, a truck driver identified as Adamu. They said they dumped his dead body. He was shot in the scuffle. They dumped his dead body on the police van, and overnight the dead body vanished. They can't trace it. So according to the government, there is no loss of lives, but the truck driver said they lost one of their own, and they dumped his dead body on the vandalized police trucks. The truck drivers are complaining about unfair treatment to some people. Like some people are getting preferential treatments concerning getting the clearance of their way while others are being left behind. And this is the reason for the crisis. Anyone who knows Team Kanapapa area knows that place is a major breakdown of law and order. And it is pivotal to the movement of flow of products in and out of Nigeria. We're still heavily dependent on the ports being effective.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
is
So the insecurity situation, of course, every day we hear another. And this is in Zamfara State. Armed bandits went into this mosque on Friday and they abducted the imam and about 18 members of the mosque who were there sitting down listening to the sermon. And, the police confirmed this story. The governor has said that they will do their best to make sure that these people are released. Meanwhile, also, he received about 11 rescued people who had been kidnapped previously, and 11 of them were rescued. I think there were 10 men and 1 female amongst them. And he says that he will not rest until he brings total peace back to the state. He says that to be able to get the return of these people was because of the relationship and the carrot and stick relationship that they have with some of the reform bandits. They are still working with reform bandits, and those who have refused to repent will face the full wrath of the law.
Okay, we wanted to take
syrup. Yes. Yeah. So the syrup, NECA, are prescribing what the government can do to jumpstart the economy, because right now they say we're about to hit the worst recession ever. So Olawale, who is speaking on behalf of SERAP, says that government should fast-track implementation of a lot of the policies that are already on ground. Export potential, mostly the huge stock of natural and agro-resources to reduce pressure on the foreign reserve. They're also calling for the government to cut we should cut government costs while trying to implement these other policies. So
we'll discuss that further when we discuss the economy. But I was going to take the Northern Elders saying that they backed the Igbo presidency. I was trying to look out for if it was the Northern Elders Forum, but it didn't say that. It wasn't specific, just Northern Elders.
And they didn't specify who was speaking.
So I'm like, again,
it could be a group of people.
It could be just, I mean, well, I don't know, but the point is that according to Vanguard, Northern Elders are saying that it is the turn of the Southeast to become president, especially because the Southwest and the South side have had an opportunity, and they should give an opportunity to the Southeast. Okay, Nigerian Tribune, APC governors meeting with Jonathan Steers, controversy, trust me. People are all thinking all sorts. Kidnapped, Nasarawa APC chairman found dead. Really sad story. Uncertainty over rail connection to 6 billion naira Lekki port. MDA's why bickering over federal government's inability to pay salaries may linger. Withheld ASU's members' salaries to be subjected to a special waiver, says federal government. And FG Airport's concession plan in murky waters.
Yeah, so ASU again is back. They're still on having their discussions with the minister, and this has to do with the salaries that have been withheld. The minister says that the no work, no pay clause had been invoked on all industrial strikes and actions, and that even though the strike started in March, it was invoked in June. So, but there's an arrangement with ASU and NIMC they call it like a handshake arrangement to sort of give them like a special waiver for that time where their salaries were withheld. And the
UTAS is still undergoing usability tests to show if they can still use it while they're still trying to.
So the minister said for all those who are on the IPPIS who were paid, but this is for those who have not been. And the reason why the UTAS hasn't, is because it's still going through tests, and when it's usable, they would.
I'll talk about the MDAs. MDAs, why bickering over inability to pay workers. So the Director General of Budget Office, Mr. Ben Akabwize, disclosed that about 428 out of the 700 federal government agencies will not be able to pay salaries as of the end of November. But he backtracked and said that barely 48 hours later that's not true, that it is... The government isn't as broke as he... Oh, really? Yeah, he said, yes, barely 48 hours later, Ben Akabwize denied ever saying that Nigeria was broke to pay salary, clarifying at the time that 2020 budget was being prepared. Negotiations for the minimum wage are ongoing, have been finished, and authorities have no other option than to base the 2020 personnel on the MDs. Generally, we don't have money. They are still going back and forth on how we're going to pay. He's also saying that there's a lot of duplication of agencies. And I think that there's been a recommendation. We have a lot of papers and policy recommendations to collapse these
what that
things.
means, that collapsing means that loss of salaries. That also have a ripple effect. So there's always that catch-22 situation. But I was going to take that final paper on the ports. It seems like we are, not the airports actually, it seems like we're having issues with the concession that we currently, because according to the papers, there's a $500 million loan. China was supposed to give us $400 million while we bring the $400 million. There's still currently an issue where our ability, our capacity to pay back this loan. If we cannot, especially because many of these airports are not yet functioning, I think they only focus on the Port Harcourt and I think maybe the Abuja one. If they cannot pay them back, that means that we might end up losing these assets to the Chinese. And that's a conversation that is being had right now concerning these concessions. Well, that's what the papers are saying. When we come back, we'll take an inner look into the economy. We'll bring in experts to explain to us how we can get around these high costs of maintenance, high cost of food, everything. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. So the Nigerian economy has slipped into second recession in 5 years, culminating months of battering and battling with the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, it is the nation's second recession since 2016 and the worst in almost 4 decades. But what really is recession? And how does it affect you and I? Joining us right now is an economist, Mr. Adewale Ajayi, partner KPMG Tax Energy. Good morning, Mr. Ajayi. Are you there?
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to have you on the show. So we need your help this morning to shed some light to Nigerians on the issue at hand, the economy. So we slipped into recession, and we know that means that we've contracted for the past 3 quarters. Now, Nigerians are hearing recession, and we've been through this road before. Could you help us break it down for the average Nigerian to understand what does this mean?
Okay. Thank you so much for that question. When we talk about recession, we're talking about a situation where there is a slowdown or a contraction in economic activities. And, how does this arise? What that means is this. When you have contraction, what that means is there is confidence or loss of confidence in consumer demand. And so people are not buying as they ought to be. And if people are not buying, what that means is that companies are going to start losing money and they're going to start making losses. And if they're making losses, there is only one thing that companies will tend to do, and that would be to lay off workers. And when they lay off workers, what that does, of course, is to increase the level of unemployment. So when you have a situation where people are not buying and there is a high rate of unemployment, then you say a country is a recession. Though economists would say that when you have 2 consecutive quarters of declining growth, you're in a recession. So that really is what a recession is, when you have a slowdown in economic activities.
Right.
So the impact, many people hear recession, and I like the way you broke it down, but essentially I want you to clarify something, inflation and recession. How does it work, and what is the impact of both of them on us? So you've explained recession, but we don't understand how inflation is impacted by the recession. We already know we have high inflation. Break it down to the average Nigerian to understand how this affects us everyday life.
Okay. Currently, the inflation rate in Nigeria is about 14%. And, it is interesting that we've been trying to make efforts to reduce it to single digits, and we've not succeeded. The last time we had a single-digit inflation was sometime in 2016, early 2016, when we had about 6%. So with 40% inflation, right, it's very high. And so when you talk about recession and the relationship between inflation, what tends to happen is this. First and foremost is to understand that the recession we have in Nigeria is more of a cost-push inflation, cost-push recession. In other words, because the prices of things are going up, that is really inflation, right? When prices of things are going up. And like you rightly note, we know in Nigeria, Nigeria economy is only dependent on crude oil, right? So there's no money we're making from crude oil, because there's no money we're making from crude oil in terms of foreign exchange. Okay, what that does is to increase the cost of change in Nigeria. And we also know the actions that government has taken in respect of electricity hike in the electricity price, tariff, and of course we also know the situation about the fuel, right? So the prices of things have gone up. And once the prices of things have gone up, what that means is that people are not able to buy. They don't have the ability, to buy. And they're not spending money. And to the extent they're not spending money, what that means, of course, is that, there will be a contraction in economic activity. So that really is the relationship between inflation and recession.
Okay. So let's just get down to the layman. The conversation we hear on the streets, since the word recession, this is the second time in 5 years, a lot of people on the streets are like, for me, this is just a word. We have been suffering since. So recession, when was there not a recession as far as the regular man is concerned? And that, they feel that it's quite convenient to blame it on the pandemic, because that's another thing we hear, that, it's affecting so many other countries because of the lockdown due to the pandemic. But the Nigerian man is saying, I have been suffering, for long. This is worse than just twice in 5 years. It's all through 5 years.
Right.
Okay, yes, it's pretty easy for a Nigerian to say that because inflation has consistently been on the increase, double digits, that will be, they've experienced recession because they cannot afford to buy the things they want. But let me put it this way. Even before the pandemic struck, right, we had the issue of decline in oil prices. And for people to understand it better, let me paint a picture for you. The oil industry is just about 10% of our GDP, right? But despite that low contribution to our GDP, it contributes about 50% of the total revenue that government makes. And it contributes about 80% of the foreign exchange earnings in Nigeria. And it also contributes about 30% of bank credit. So if the oil industry is not doing well, there is a positive correlation between that oil industry and economic activities. So there will be a slowdown in economic activity. So before the pandemic started, around January, February, we had a decline in oil prices in 2019. You remember, I mean, our oil price fell even as low as about $10 or negative digits in early 2020, right? And so government could not make money. And so because government could not make money, then it triggers a whole lot of things, right? And there's a slowdown. And so really and truly, the pandemic only added to the problem we had. So it's not really surprising to people that we're in recession. It is something that we expected.
Okay.
Given the effect of the decline in oil prices and the fact of the lockdown that we had during the pandemic. And so technically speaking, if you don't have a negative growth, a country will not, for 2 consecutive quarters, you won't say that you are in a recession.
All right.
You may have an increase in inflation, but it really doesn't translate, to recession.
All right, Mr.
But you
Ajayi.
need to then be able to look at the growth or decline in economic activities before you can say that the country is experiencing a recession.
Mr. Ajayi, let's talk about solutions, because we know that the Vice President, former Vice President Atiku was suggesting that we need to cut the cost of governance,
Yes.
Increase taxes on luxury goods and then reduce cost of governance by removing obstacles and all the other things, benefits that our leaders have. Do you think that can be a solution that we can see? Or are there more important monetary policies that CBN must take to help us bounce back?
Okay, that's very interesting. If you remember the last time we had this conversation on the economic sustainability plan, right? Government talked about some stimulus packages that they needed to do, and so we know about the 2.3 trillion naira that government wants to spend between March of this year or end of March this year to April next year, 12-month period. And the whole idea then is that if that money is spent, right, we'll be able to reduce the impact on the decline on GDP to about 0.59%. That was the plan. So when you look at the cost of recession in Nigeria, apart from the issues in oil, right, we've been talking about diversifying our economy for a very long time. We want to go into agriculture, we want to go into manufacturing, we want to be able to produce what we eat or eat what we produce and all those things. But nothing has really happened, right? We talk the talk, but we don't walk the talk, right? You're right to say that one of the problems we have in Nigeria is the cost of governance. Cost of governance is pretty high, right? When you have a situation where we have a 5 trillion in our budget deficit, and the question is, where do you get money to finance that deficit? You have to borrow. And so, but there are certain things that you can do to reduce the impact of the deficit. You have to reduce the size of government. The size of government, both at the national level and at the state level, currently is extremely high. So we need to reduce that. There is no point in trying to make more money, and we're spending that more money on government officials. So that has to happen. And the second thing, of course, that also has to happen is what you've talked about, tax measures. And the Nigerian tax authorities, either at the federal or state level, have actually taken measures to try and cushion the impact of recession on businesses. And of course, the latest thing that CBN has done to try and manage it is is when they reduce the rate of the monetary policy rate from 12.5% to 11.5%. The whole idea is to be able to, get banks to be able to give credit to customers, right? So that's what CBN is doing, and hopefully that will work. And obviously, what that does, of course, is that also can in a way, also increase inflation when you have more money in circulation.
Right. Okay,
the reasons why CBN has taken that particular measure is because they believe that this recession is cost push, rather than some structural issues in the
Okay, we'll come back to that issue. Let's go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. We still have our guest with us, Mr. Ajayi from KPMG. Mariam, you're going to ask a question. Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, so of course we have, as you earlier said, Mariah, a lot of people are giving suggestions on the way forward, and the former vice president gave like a whole list. And there was one that he talked about, the stimulus package, and he says like a 5,000 naira to be paid to, individuals that will be worse hit by this recession. And for me, that also sounds like the trader money kind of arrangement. And I know that was heavily criticized. What is your opinion on that?
It's very interesting. I think the problem we've had in this country has always been a question of mistrust, a question of transparency, right? I mean, you've talked about trader money or money market. What has happened in Nigeria is the fact that these are basically transfers of cash, to people. But, at the end of the day is that, there is really no accountability as to who receives this money, how this money is spent, right? But, the fact of the matter is that one of the, tested approaches to dealing with recession is for government to spend. You really have to spend money because you're saying that people are not demanding. There's a contraction, so you need to spend. But you spend on infrastructure, right? The kind of projects that will create employment opportunities. Mm-hmm. You spend on agriculture, where it can generate, massive employment opportunities, for people. But of course, you also have the small businesses, which really are the engine of growth for the, for the sector, the informal market. So you also need to encourage that, right? But the question is, who are the people receiving this money? Are they giving it to the right people? Are they accounting for the money? So that is really the dilemma that we need to deal with in Nigeria. Since the trader money program, started. It's just a way of a social intervention program. But Nigerians just don't have any trust or any faith in, in the program in itself.
Okay.
So really, we need to spend, but there has to be transparency.
Right.
So I have about 4 questions, but follow up on this particular question. I think that we should clarify that because many people have shared opinion that direct cash transfer doesn't exactly solve the problem. Do you believe that just paying money to people's accounts would help them, or should we create a food bank where people get meal packages, like the way we had the palliatives, but in a more efficiently managed manner where those that are really in need get the money, get the food, as opposed to just putting cash into their hands? Do you agree with that?
Okay, well, yes, I do. But what I will also say is that it's a question of, who receives the money. The money that is transferred is not meant for people to use it on consumption.
Exactly.
It's actually meant to be able to expand their business activities.
Exactly. They don't do that.
And as they expand their business activities, they're going to be doing well. They create employment opportunities. Exactly. But what we've done here in Nigeria is that there is no proper accountability. Exactly. And so people are collecting the money, and they see that money as their own dividend of democracy.
Exactly.
So the money is not being spent for the purpose for which it is meant for. Of course, palliative is okay in terms of providing goods and what have you. Yeah. But these are all minor measures, that we really won't go, a long way.
Okay, let's...
You need to combine it with other measures. Yeah.
Let's talk about this. You know how we save for the rainy day, excess crude accounts. We always expect that this sovereign wealth fund that wasn't just time was supposed to save money for times like these. Do you think we have enough buffer to carry the economy for this period?
We don't. That's the obvious truth. We don't have any buffer. Well, you remember in 2014 when oil price was as high as $110. What did we do with the money? We blew the money, and that is why we are where we are today. Really, we've never had buffer. We've never planned for the rainy day, unfortunately. Wow. We talk all the time about creating buffer, but we don't. And that is why we can't even finance our budget. There's a 5 trillion that we need to finance 2021 budget, and we have to borrow. And if you're up to borrow, what that means is that you're not making enough money. You're going to be spending a lot of the money that you make on interest and payment. Yeah. But unfortunately, we still have to borrow. We still need to spend. Right. So that's the dilemma.
Okay, let me get a few more questions in for you before we round up.
Don't have buffer.
Go ahead.
Please, I want to just quickly ask this question. There are 2 decisions the government made this year that has heavily impacted this inflation recession. One is the impact of increase in oil price of petrol and increase in power. Do you think it was the right decision, or something that maybe if we didn't do it, it will have eased the lot of the average Nigerian? Second question is, how can the government drive down the cost of food? Because that is affecting everybody every day. So what do you think they can do? 2 different questions.
Okay, thanks. So on the first question, yes, I agree it is the right decision. It's a decision that we should have taken a long time ago, really. People complain that, look, they don't have power. You can't have power when you're not paying cost-reflective tariff. So it's like a head and chicken thing. You will need to be able to spend money to improve the infrastructure, the power infrastructure. So government needs to increase the tariff. That is fine. Then for petrol, we need, because we have said already that we're subsidizing. right? Subsidy doesn't pay anybody. People don't subsidize consumption. We subsidize production.
Yeah.
And that is what we're doing in Nigeria. We're subsidizing consumption. So the answer to your question, yes, we need to increase the tariff for electricity, and we need to remove the subsidy. So I agree with what government has done. We should have done it,
right,
a long time ago. In terms of how do we reduce the cost of food, because people are feeling the pinch. Yes, I mean, part of the thing, one of the things that we did, I mean, in August, if you remember, in August last year, government decided to close our border. It was supposed to be a short-term measure, just to curb smuggling, right? But it's been on now for more than a year. And what that does, of course, is that we're not even able to produce or export because of the inputs that we need. We can't even export because the border is closed, right? And of course, that has triggered also the cost of food in Nigeria. Of course, the government is trying to ensure that we protect the domestic market. I think it is high time that the government open the border, and then we can deal with the issue of corruption in a different way.
All right.
So one thing that the government can do, really, we need to open the border.
Right. Okay.
So one last one is, what advice would you have for someone sitting at home and thinking, okay, we're in a recession, this is where I found myself. What are the personal decisions you think someone should take during this time to survive this period?
Thank you. I think the very first thing is to understand that, I mean, when you find ourselves, we're saying there's a slowdown, right? So what that means is that you need to then ask yourself, what are you spending money on first? Are you spending money on what is very important or what is a priority, right? If you're not spending on things that will yield anything, then you're going to complicate problems, for yourself. So the very first thing I want to say is that people have to look inward and ask themselves, what are their priorities? Are they spending money on the right thing? That is first. Right. That is one. The number two, obviously, I mean, it depends on whether the person has lost his or her job, right, or you're still in employment. If you're in employment, then you need to start asking yourself, how do you, enhance your skills so that you become useful? I mean, now, obviously, in this kind of situation in Nigeria, we've realized that technology is key. So do you have the right skills, the right competencies to be able to survive, if companies start, laying off? So people have to find a way, to expand, the skills.
Unfortunately, we have to wrap up right now.
Find a way to look for other things, to improve, their ability to make revenue for themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Ajayi, for joining us this morning. I really appreciate your views on this. Thank you. He's a financial expert with KPMG.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I think one of the things I got out from this conversation is our own part of this responsibility. Yes, people always think that the government can make one magic wand and then everything goes away. But the truth is that we also have a part to play. So, for example, from what Mr. Ajayi has said, part of the solution that the government could do is reduce inflation, or reduce the interest rates, for example. That's an example that we've seen. Now, imagine you're paying 100,000 naira for your loan. And now, because the government suddenly, it's an example, reduces interest rates, and now you're having to pay 70,000 naira. Now, that 30,000 naira that you've saved, instead of you to go and buy food and consume, use it to reinvest. Either you hire somebody else, an additional person, or invest in your business so we can jumpstart the economy. That's the objective Nigerians can do. So the idea that when they put money into the system for us to have money to spend, it's not for us to go and start buying bags and start consuming. He has said we need to reinvest that money to kickstart our economy so we can begin to have engaged people, and that's how we can solve this problem together. So I think that's our responsibility as citizens. On that note, we're going to go on a break. When we come back, we talk about security, another strong topic that Nigerians are talking about. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thank you for staying with us. So before we go into the security, I know before, while I was talking about summarizing what we had the conversation, you were saying something.
Yes, I just wanted to add, you were saying that the monies that you do make or are able to save now, how we consume them, I don't think it matters what you spend it on, as long as you spend it within the country. So if you spend it on food, if you spend it on bags, you are putting money into that particular industry.
Right.
And so that is jump-starting the economy anyway. The only thing we're saying is that maybe do not take those monies out. And I think that's why the former vice president was saying that for people who use our forex to buy luxury, imported luxury items, it should be heavily taxed so that money still comes back to us. Yeah.
Makes sense. All right, so let's move on to security. Security of lives and property is a dire need for any thriving economy. Now, without security, a country remains exposed to threats and is vulnerable. Joining us on the show is a renowned expert on security matters to dissect our current security system, Professor Adoni Onoja. Good morning, sir. Are you there?
Yeah, good morning.
Prof, good to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So, in the last few months, many Nigerians, in fact, years, I would say, because we're in the South here, we always assume that here is safer, but the country has been undergoing a lot of security threats. And it's closer to home for us here, especially down south, because nowhere is safe. And we feel like the security operatives are almost incapacitated. You know, they don't have enough ammunition, they don't have a police station, the private sector is trying to work together to see what they can do to support the government. And we are in a rebuilding stage. So between now and when that time comes, how do you think what do you think government can do to help restore law and order, especially to these high-prone security areas?
Well, thank you for having me. Let me begin by making a correction. My name is Adoyi Onoja, not Adoni Onoja.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Back to your question. Your question is, what do I think the government can do to check the situation? Let me begin by saying that in terms of what we call security in this country, there is a faulty foundation. The faulty foundation has something to do with what we call security. What exactly is security? Have we ever sat down in this country to define what is security, what secures our people? In your question, you mentioned the police, you mentioned the lack of ammunition, etc. And those are supposed to be what secure our people. Unfortunately, in the last 20 years of civilian rule, we have noticed that those things you attributed, those elements, ammunition, police station, etc., that we, often associate with security, has not been able to secure our people. And that brings us back to asking the very fundamental question, what is security? As a country, have we ever defined security? Have we ever sat down and composed a philosophy and agreed that this is what secures our country? Other countries have. The most recent is China, the People's Republic of China. China came out with the national security law. And in that law, China defined what is security, who's security, what is a security issue, and how can that security be achieved. In our own country, what we find ourselves doing often is imitating other people's reality. So, for instance, in Nigeria, we talk about security. And often when we want to get on a higher ground, we talk about national security. And we fail to understand that these terms are not indigenous to Nigeria. The concept of national security that is used repeatedly is not indigenous to Nigeria. The concept of national security is indigenous to the United States of America. So when Americans talk about national security, they know what they're talking about. It goes way back to the legislation signed into law by President Harry S. Truman in 1947 that created the philosophy called national security. Do we have an equivalent like that in this country? In what context are we associating what the police does, what the armed forces does with security? Because essentially that is what we in this country call security.
Okay.
We have a legal basis for doing that.
So, Prof, how would you want Nigerians to define security? Because for me, it's not about the security definition is nomenclature, it's English language. I just want to be able to walk freely within my country, drive my car with my windows down without being scared that somebody would come in, would snatch my phone because I'm stuck in traffic. So I think that maybe from the academia point of view, you might feel as a country we need to define security. So I'd like you to start by defining what security for Nigeria should be and breaking down how we can create a structure that provides security for ourselves as opposed to what we have right now, which is a similitude of anarchy.
I let me begin by saying that I disagree with you that security is just a nomenclature. It is not. When I mention the People's Republic of China, when I mention the United States of America, it is not nomenclature there. And this is where we're getting it wrong. This is where journalists are also getting it very, very wrong. Because when it comes to asking the very hard question, journalists should be asking the very hard question. So it goes deeper than that. What secures the people of Nigeria? Why are Nigerians not secure? It has nothing to do with, just, the area you're pointing at. A lot of things are deeply flawed in this country. One area you need to look at is the constitution of this country. If there is anything that is a problem to this country at this very moment, it is the constitution. And when we talk about security, in the sense we talk about security, all we do is to look up to the federal government. But Nigeria goes beyond the federal government. We're supposed to be a country running a three-tier system of government. Nobody bothers about what happened at the local level, at the local government level. Nobody bothers about what happened at the states level. Everybody is focused at the national level. And this is a problem that begins with the constitution we're operating. So our most important problem today has to do with writing a constitution that reflects what I call the history, experience, and reality of Nigeria. At that point, we will begin to create what will secure Nigeria. If you want me to define security for you, I'll define security as the well-being of the individual.
Gotcha. All right.
That is what security means.
Right.
Can you, in all honesty, agree that most Nigerians enjoy this well-being in all of its ramifications? Now, when you create that opportunity for Nigerians, then you can afford to drive your car on the street, wind down your window, or wind it up, and not get molested by anybody.
Gotcha.
Can you say that at the local government level, at the state level, and at the federal level, in the last 20 years of representative rule, that Nigerians have well-being? The Nigerians cry out. In the last EndSARS protest, the Nigerian police force is just a euphemism. The real culprit is the issue we have with governance. Governance has failed us in the last 20 years. And how do I define governance? I define governance as the effective and efficient utilization of human and material resources for the benefit of most people. Now, can you honestly say that in the last 20 years, there has been an effective and efficient utilization of human and material resources for the benefit of Nigerians?
Okay. Now, okay, let me go on a quick break, sir.
5 years, for instance.
Yeah.
Can you say that we've been able to deliver on that?
Right. These are important issues you're talking about, and I think we need to focus a bit on it more. But let me go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll take a look at how governance has actually affected security. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. We still have Professor Onoja with us talking about security. Yes, Mariam had a question.
Yes. So, having taken us to what the foundation or what the core of the matter is, what would you say is the best thing to do for now in the short term while we work on the long-term approach? What do you think?
When you say the short term and the long term, and then taking you to where the problem lies, are you talking about governance or are you talking about security? Because these are two distinct issues.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear that, but I am referring to the governance issue.
When you said you're referring to the governance issue.
Yes, so that's the long term, because for me that would take elections, educating people. That's a long-term process to get things right. But in the short term, while I'm driving, as someone, as Tokwe earlier said, while I'm driving down the road, what do we need to do in the short term to take care of things like this?
What you need in relation to your having to drive safely on your street and don't get molested, what you need to do in the short term is for you to fund the police adequately. the Nigerian police force is grossly underfunded. Grossly underfunded to the extent that what we do is to pour resources into the so-called security area. Imagine, for instance, we have a police force that will draw up a budget, realistically a budget of, say, over 300 billion naira to be able to deliver its services. At the end of the day, out of 300 billion naira, you appropriate just 14 billion. And then in the final analysis, you release just 9 billion to the police. I'll give you an instance. The police has over 12,000 vehicles. If the police on average is to fuel the vehicles, give each of the vehicles 10 liters of fuel every day, times 10 liters of fuel every day, like 12,000, and then run it for 365 days. You're talking about well over 30 billion just to fuel vehicles. And the entire budget of the Nigerian police force is 9 billion naira. How can the police be able to protect you? How can the police be able to enforce law and order in the society? Now, put that side by side with the fight against insurgency. Do you know how much resources we commit to that area? And do you know where those resources go into? The last time I checked, over 75 billion naira was allocated to fighting insurgency in the Northeast. 2/3 of that money ends up in people's pockets, individuals. You know, both political elected and appointed political officials and the professionals in the field, the defense professionals, the Army, Air Force, Navy. And these are real life experiences shared. Now, this is where we say our priority is. This is what we describe as security. You end up in people's pockets. Now, if you want to create a safe society in the short term, this is what you need to do. Fund the police adequately. Okay. Are you surprised that the police is run by Nigerians?
Right, right.
For them to be able to fuel their vehicle, they have to go to Nigerians to fuel their vehicle. So this is what will create the kind of safety you want in the short term.
Right. Okay, let me get a few more questions in for you, sir.
I hear you about funding the police, and I think many people would agree with you on that. Can you help guide how we fund the police? Because currently, the average Nigerian is funding the police. It's just about funding the police from illegal means, indirectly. We tip them every other day. They're on the streets, and we help out. But how can we create a formal structure for the police? Because the average Nigerian doesn't trust the policing system to disburse the funds appropriately. So if I take my money and I go to the police, how am I sure that they would give the money, it would trickle down? Or what would you advise to be the right vehicle for maybe a local government area to create funds and then go to the police station? How do we go about it? How would you advise?
In addition to that, because I know that Lagos State has that Lagos State Security Trust Fund that private partners have come together. Do you think that's something that we can replicate across the country, or is it something that we need to still bring further down to the grassroots to participate in?
You know, when I started, I mentioned the Constitution as fundamentally the problem of Nigeria. Yes. You would recall, I'm sure you saw it on the floor of the House, a legislature screaming that this is the problem of Nigeria, this Constitution. Right. There are 68 provisions in the Constitution that is entirely the responsibility of the federal government. And we're supposed to be in a system called a federal system. So we need to change this Constitution if we have to make any progress, whether in you paying to fund the police or not. Unless we do that, we cannot make progress, because once we are making progress, there are our own laws are going to be the stumbling block. The Constitution is particularly the most fundamental problem, source of the problem we're having in this country. You know, we have had in the past a decentralized system of policing. You know, there have been calls for state police, etc. We know, for instance, that most of the vehicles owned by the police, the communication equipment owned by the police, like you mentioned in the Lagos State outfit, are provided by the state. It is no longer a debate that the state can fund the police, but the Constitution doesn't allow that. So we need to do something about our Constitution. If you're talking about creating a trust fund, there's a police trust fund. And that trust fund was set up to exactly, address the issue of funding of the police. But at the moment, there's a problem somewhere, and the trust fund is yet to take off. But even if that trust fund takes off, can you insulate it from the systemic that goes on in Nigeria?
Thank you.
Like the trust, it's like
Professor,
in the education sector. Yes?
Professor, you think that after #EndSARS protests, legislators will begin to take the conversation on local policing very seriously. We know of Amotekun in the southwest and other regions are trying to have that security. But you think that this is the right time to begin to how to deconstruct or deregulate that police sector, bring it from the exclusive list and bring it to be more localized? What do you think is restraining this from happening?
The Constitution. That is what is restraining it. Recently, the National Assembly sent out memo to collect Nigerian views, the views on the Constitution. That the Constitution is a stumbling block to the operation of Amotekun.
Okay.
There's a limit to which Amotekun will go, and the federal authority will stop Amotekun on its track. Except the Constitution is reviewed. That's the biggest problem we're having in this country.
Right.
Except the Constitution is reviewed, there's no progress in the area of what you call quote-unquote security or what governance should look like in this country.
Thank you
Professor,
so much.
while we're waiting for constitutional review, I believe that everybody should actually put pressure on their representatives to see how we can actualize that, which is more long-term. I was just thinking, based on the conversation we've been having on the show, that local governments, LCDs, I can speak for Lagos, we have communities and we already contribute money to provide similitude of security for ourselves. We all have security men that man different gate posts within our areas. How is it possible under the scope of things for us to gather that same money we already gathered together? But rather than paying individual private security officials, we pay it to as a fund to the police and ask our police force not to collect bribes within our areas and focus on delivering quality service, since we are going to be covering their everyday expense. Like, we contribute money to put fuel in the generators for police stations and put fuel in their cars. Can we do that? Individuals just do that to support the police as it is right now?
Recently the Nigerian Police Force established the National Institute of Police Studies, and not quite long ago, 50 graduates left that particular institution. They were there for 8 weeks. And coincidentally, the EndSARS protest met them while they were on a field research. The theme for that particular cause was building trust and confidence in the Nigerian police force through community policing. The whole idea of community policing is conceived on the basis of trying to see how the police can partner with the community in order to try to address some of the problems facing the police force. Among these is the question of finance. Yes, we can. We can contribute to growing and developing and maintaining our police force. But that structure has to be very clear on the ground. The biggest problem facing the Nigerian police force, and which the National Assembly should address, is to commit to funding the police. If the police is funded properly, you don't need the police to collect bribes. And when I say funding, it goes all around, including the remuneration and the welfare of the police people. Unless that is done, then of course this idea of us supporting the police by the community clearly on the ground, the basis has to be established. We'll have to continue if we have to maintain law and order within our community. That is what we can do for the short term. On the other hand, I see no reason why the lawmakers...
So thank you very much, sir, for that. We appreciate your thoughts on the issue of security. And we totally agree with you. The constitutional review is paramount to beginning to discuss how we can fix security across the country, because security cannot be something we do from the center. There has to be something from the individual states, regions, and local governments. So it's something we need to discuss going forward. But unfortunately, we have to wrap up now. Thank you so much, Professor Onoja, for joining us this morning. That's all we can take on the show.
But to sort of like bring a bit of closure to individuals, it's important that we take that ownership by ourselves anyway and start helping the police around our areas. I know that we leave it to corporate organizations, the big businesses do CSR and they provide vehicles, but the everyday running cost of running those vehicles with fuel and powering generators, the average police stations, they don't have pen and paper. So I think that Nigerians should take up that responsibility to help out.
Thank you very much, ladies. For those of you watching the show for the first time, your view is independent ladies sharing our independent views. None of our views or that of our guests are of the station. Hope you understand that. Have a fabulous day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.